Okay.
Welcome everybody to the MetanetTV live stream for June 2019. Hey there everyone, this is John. I'm here for the MetanetTV monthly live stream. And our guest from Endchain this month is Daniel Connolly, who's the BitcoinSV Lead Developer there. So Daniel's waiting for me now. Daniel, how's it all going?
Hi, it's going good. How about you?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. Are you at home at the moment, or are you at work?
I'm at home. I'm a remote worker, so I work from home normally.
Really? Are you based in London?
No, I'm in Austria.
You're in Austria?
Yeah, I go to London about once a month normally for a week. So
okay.
I'm flying out there on Sunday.
And where are you from originally?
Friday.
Where's your homeland?
Yes, I work from home.
Right. And which country are you from?
I am from the UK, but I moved to Austria like 19 years ago.
Right.
And have sort of settled here and put down roots and kind of want to stay here now.
I think you might have picked up a bit of the accent there too.
Yes, maybe, yeah.
Tends to happen after a while. Okay then, so yep, we're streaming live now and people are watching, so I guess we should just fly right into it. I haven't had you on the show before, but so just wondering, can you tell us a bit about what you do at Endchain, what your job involves, what's going on there, that kind of thing. I think basically a bit of background about you and how you got into all this.
Okay, so we can start at the beginning. I've been in Bitcoin a long time, since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Been following it since then. I was really upset by the block size debate that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Bitcoin Cash came, I jumped on board, and that was also a good time for me with my career. I had some time, so I started contributing open source. I contributed to Electron Cash, the wallet, because I saw that as a really important part of Bitcoin Cash to get it going, right? To get people using it. But I quickly got frustrated with Bitcoin Electron Cash because it inherited it was a fork of Electrum, right?
Yeah.
And the code that we forked from Electrum, I just got really frustrated with it. So I started looking for other things. What I wanted to work on was enterprise adoption of Bitcoin. So that's where I come from. I come from enterprise IT. Mm-hmm. And I was looking for things, software that a company could use to start in a responsible manner to start using Bitcoin. So I turned to Bitcoin J, and which is a Java implementation.
That was Mike Hearn's thing, right?
Sorry, what?
That was Mike Hearn's thing, wasn't it?
Yes, it was originally. Yeah. Yes, yep. So I found like about 3, I think, people who'd started working on a cache version, and I contacted them, and we joined forces into one, which was called Bitcoin J Cache. Mm-hmm. And that's where I met Steve. And I was working with him and talking to him a lot. And then this opportunity at Endchain came up. So I joined Endchain to continue working on enterprise adoption of Bitcoin, actually. And because of my knowledge, expertise in Bitcoin, I started working together to re-enable opcodes and things like that to progress the chain, talking to Bitcoin Unlimited and Bitcoin ABC. And as we know, that kind of went where it went, right?
Sure did.
So then it wasn't going. In fact, it wasn't going. So BitcoinSV, we had to bite the bullet and produce our own client.
So Bitcoin Cash, did that ever struggle with enterprise adoption that you saw?
Well, not more so than other cryptocurrencies. I don't think. No, I mean, we got pretty far with Bitcoin J Cash. I haven't worked on that now for like a year or so, but that was working well, and we wanted to get it up to a quality standard that it would be that enterprise IT teams could start to use it. Right, that was the goal.
Yeah.
And then after that, we wanted to start building integrations with corporate IT systems. That was the plan. The problem with Bitcoin Cash was a lot of the problem was a difference in visions that we had for where it was going. Right, it led to a lot of arguments and a lot of discussion and debate and a lot of contention. And then that change in November was just the direction they went was something we just completely didn't agree with.
Yeah, it took a lot of people by surprise, I think.
Yeah, so we had to start building a BitcoinSV.
Yeah.
And so that's we pulled the team off Nakasendo and put them on BitcoinSV.
Mm-hmm.
I led that team as a direct manager for quite some time. But then we've been hiring people all the time, and we've hired other people to do that role now. And I do more of the technical direction. So working out how are we going to implement all the changes we want from Genesis, how we're going to implement scaling, and give sort of technical direction to the primarily the BitcoinSV team, but also Terranode. Also the Bitcoin, we Bitcoin J, we don't call it Bitcoin J anymore, but there's another project to kick that off again.
What is it called now?
I'm not sure we've totally decided on the name. but it's a complete rewrite. So we'll be importing code from Bitcoin J Cash,
right.
Or the Bitcoin JSV. There's someone who's maintaining an SV version of it, but we want to reorganize it to make it fit with our future projects on the more enterprise use of the blockchain. Right.
So just further on that topic, this is a bit of a mystery to me. Like, what are enterprises, big and small, looking for when they're looking to implement something like this? It's like I wouldn't even know where to start if I was approaching one of them.
Well, so enchain has three main departments or pillars, right? One of them's research, the other is engineering, and the third one is professional services. So the research is the original one. This is where all the researchers are, who are generating IP, generating patents and things like that, ideas on techniques, on inventions, on how to use Bitcoin at a higher level, right? As an idea, more the application level. And then the engineering team is software developers. Basically, we do BitcoinSV, we do Terranode, we do the new Java library, and then a couple of other things too. And then the professional services is about reaching out to, or not just reaching out to, but responding to companies who are interested in using blockchain. Okay, in their portfolio, and they have a whole group of people dedicated to doing this. companies have heard about blockchain and they're interested in how they could use it. And so our focus with them would be more to explain the benefits of using BitcoinSV and how that can help them achieve their business purposes, right? The thing that they want to do.
Do you find any of them are actually interested in using Bitcoin as money or as digital cash, or are they more interested in the extra layer blockchain services like tokenization or I hate the word, but smart contracts, that kind of thing?
I think the ones that I hear about are more interested in tokenized tokens and smart contracts and immutability, using the immutability of the blockchain to for various reasons, right?
Yeah, like I said, it's a big mystery to me, because if someone said to me, can you walk into this large company and tell them why they should use Bitcoin, I'd be saying, I have no idea, because I know why I use Bitcoin. I know why individuals might want to use it, but I couldn't really stand there and give that elevator pitch to a large enterprise.
Well, it's it gets really into specifics there, and you also need to know quite a bit about the business and what their needs are, right? So there's I know Brendan Lee posts often tweets about sort of example use cases that you could do with it. What did he post a while ago? Something about a airline manifest, right? Who's on the plane and things like this. There are so many use cases where you could use it. It's a really wide scope. And the advantages really come when there are multiple businesses using it for different purposes, and you can link those cases together, right? So you've got invoicing, you've got supply chain, and all this kind of stuff that all can sort of tie together and reference other parts of it.
And would you say BitcoinSV is ready for prime time now, or is it very much a coming soon or coming next kind of deal?
Of course, it's ready for prime time now. Yes.
I just wanted to hear it from you.
It is ready right now for many use cases. Metanet is coming along nicely. What we will also see, though, after February next year, after the Genesis upgrade of the blockchain, is it should release a lot of the smart contract capabilities, which at the moment would be difficult to use. I mean, they're possible, but it's difficult. So after the Genesis upgrade, we'll hopefully see a lot more advances there. And then that links into the R puzzle question that I saw someone had.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we're definitely going to get into that. You actually read the questions.
I was trying to keep track of what people would ask me. Yeah.
Excellent. That's what I like to see.
Trying to prepare.
All right. Well, since we're on that topic, let's just go right into that. I want to start with Sam Cox's question, because it was kind of personal, and it's good to kick things off. He said, I'd in general be interested how Daniel got into Bitcoin in the first case, and how long he's been working on BSV. So I think we know how long you've been working on BSV, but back in 2011, what made you get into Bitcoin? Like what was it that was the gateway?
It was from a technical side, I mean, I can't remember where I read about it now. It might have been Slashdot or something like that. I really don't know. But it was fascinating to me how it worked, right? And actually a long time ago, but now we're talking like the 90s. So before my oldest kid was born, or maybe around that time, I was a member of the Cypherpunk mailing list. I never posted on there, but I did read like the Cypherpunk manifesto and stuff, and that stuff was very interesting to me. but then my career kind of took over. I got very busy with that. So when Bitcoin came, when I started reading about it, it was like a pullback to these old ideas, and it was like fascinating from that point of view. It was really interesting. And it was the technical side that I was primarily interested in at the time. The economics, I'm not an economist. I'm just, it's a fascinating topic, but I'm just not. So how those all work together was also was something I started thinking about more later. So maybe several years later. It was just a really interesting technology, and I played around with it. I mined a tiny little bit on the back with GPUs, and then ASICs came along, and I said, screw that. There's no point doing that.
Like most people who were mining in their houses.
Sorry, what?
Like most people who were mining in their houses, yeah.
Yeah, it made a hell of a noise.
I think that's kind of what prompted the whole, altcoin economy. Was people had all these mining rigs that they'd built themselves and paid a lot of money for, and suddenly they had to find a new use to them.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, the BTC stuck at 1 meg also upset me so much that I did look at other ones. I looked at, I was quite interested in Monero for a while.
Oh yeah.
But then I got out of that for philosophical reasons. I was primarily interested in the math, and I spent a good deal of time really diving into the math behind Monero, which was fascinating. Dash was also interesting for me at one time, but what did they call it again? The masternode model. I had a masternode at one point. I disagreed with the model on philosophical grounds because I didn't see, at the time, I don't know how Dash is now. I haven't followed it for years. But at the time, you could run a masternode for on a $5 server or something like that, $5 a month server.
Yeah, I very nearly ran one myself back when it was Darkcoin.
Okay, all right, yeah, and you just earn on it, right? And I thought this was fundamentally wrong. There was a problem here. Yes, you did have to put up 1,000 Dash or whatever it was, but then to just get income from that, I thought that was wrong. And it was a very sort of not a very well thought out idea, but it when proof of stake started coming up and people, then it sort of became more of a well-formed philosophy of, proof of work is really important to the system, and proof of stake is something that I didn't want built into the system at the very foundational level.
Yeah.
Now, it's certainly true that people who have a lot of money, they invest and they get returns from that money. Other people do the work. And that's the way the world works. But to have that built into the protocol at such a fundamental level was something I didn't agree with.
Right. Now, Dash, Monero, Cypherpunks mailing list, this is all sounding a little bit anarchist.
Well, the Cypherpunks mailing list was interesting, and the manifesto also was fascinating. But yeah, there are big problems with that.
Yeah, as we've seen.
And I was in when was I? It was 98, so I'm not sure it was 98. I shouldn't say dates exactly. Late 90s, so I was in my late 20s, and these things were really interesting back then. But then, that's a long time ago, and we all grow up. And I've worked in very much governmental areas now for a long time. NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and having things like and I basically agree with government's important. I'm not an anarchist. So government's not perfect by any means, and we sometimes really elect the wrong people and really make the wrong decisions. But it's what we have.
It is. It is what we have yet. I mean, I sometimes sympathize with the anarchists, but I really don't see any kind of pathway to that becoming a reality. Apart
Yeah.
from sheer chaos first and having something grow out of it, which would probably end up with a government anyway.
Yeah.
That's
So I
my
did
very
dabble
shallow
in
take.
these things, yeah, and
Yeah.
the dashless. I told you I didn't like proof of stake.
Uh-huh.
Monero, the math was fascinating, which was what got me into that. But then what it lacked for me was simple auditability. You had to trust the math.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, people will say math is math and math is absolute, which is true, but math is also math and it's not real life.
Yeah. Math doesn't restrict your transaction blocks to 1 megabyte. People do.
No, exactly. It doesn't. Yes. So when my kids were in kindergarten, this is an analogy I thought of a while ago, but my I was talking to my daughter and I said like John has 3 sweets and Adam has 5 and how many do they have together? And my daughter went, well, 5 minus 3 is 2, so they have 2 sweets together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now her math is perfect. 5 minus 3 is 2, but the application of the math is completely wrong, right? And that's where we get with, yes, you can have fantastic math, but are you applying it correctly? And that's where I see a lot of the problems happening.
Right.
Is people just apply something to something, and because it's math, it's right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fine. So yes, that was another point. Monero, that was it. So after being in Monero for a while, I realized that you can't audit the chain. You have to trust the math. And as thinking about it a bit more deeply, the bit further, one of the beautiful things about Bitcoin is that it is fun. It is completely understandable to a non-IT, non-technical accountant or something like that, right? You have inputs into the transaction, you have outputs, you can add the number of inputs, the value of the inputs, you can add the value of the outputs, and you can verify, even without understanding all the signatures and all this kind of stuff, or the script language, you can verify that the value of the outputs is less than or equal to the inputs. And you can do that for every single transaction, and you can prove that the number of coins has not been increased, even without understanding the math behind it. When you get into some of these more complicated ones, you need to trust the math. If you don't understand it yourself, and it takes a mathematician to understand it, then you need to trust the math, and you can't audit the chain. It's not. For me, thinking about that, it was one of the geniuses of Satoshi was making that chain so easily auditable, even by non-technical people.
Right. Yeah.
It was a genius move, right?
Yeah. And as we saw from the proliferation of block explorers that sprang up after it was introduced, it must be easy to read.
Yeah, and so this brought me back to Bitcoin again. After dabbling in these altcoins, it's like Bitcoin's the one, right?
Yeah. And I was just stalking you a bit on LinkedIn before, and it said you worked for the IAEA. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
the International Atomic Energy Agency.
That's right. Yeah. So that's why I came to Austria, actually. So
right.
I joined. I used to work in the UN in the Netherlands first of all, and then I got a better job at the IAEA. I worked there in total 14 years.
That's quite interesting. So you said you were with a UN agency and then the IAEA. So you've, I mean, I don't know if we would really call them humanitarian missions, are they? Or they're still sort of charged with keeping the world secure somehow.
Well, yeah, they call it the UN family. So there's UN consists of like the UN Secretariat in New York, which was based in New York, and then it consists of various related organizations. The IAEA is one of them. There are several others too. So the IAEA is specifically about nuclear science, right? And but they all share the same goal, which is a goal that was important to me, which is I mean, if you really want to talk about it at a sort of abstract level, it's kind of like world peace and well-being for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Now they try. The UN organizations have their own problems, but in general, they are trying to do good, and they do a lot of good too. They're also very expensive, but that's another. Yeah. So people criticize the UN a lot, and some of those criticisms are valid, particularly when you come down to like the expense of the place. But it's certainly true that they do a lot of good in the world.
Interesting.
So in that role, the IAEA is not an IT organization. The UN in general is not IT. They use IT. So I worked there a long time. We provided IT to the organization, helped them, made specialized applications for them, but also just sort of ensured that they can email each other and websites and all the stuff, right?
Yeah. So it's really back-end infrastructure kind of thing. You weren't really involved with the policy or anything like that.
No. I was involved with the IT policy, which gets tricky when you start talking about security and things like that.
Yeah, I bet.
UN has its own needs about security. But in general, it was really IT as a service to the organization. Right?
Yeah. Alrighty then, let's go into some more of these Twitter questions so that we don't run over time.
Sure.
Yeah, Dale, the wildcard she was asking about your new CEO. Is it David Washburn?
Yes.
Endchain. I don't know much about him, to be honest. So when did he take over?
I can't give you an exact date because I can't remember it.
Right.
And even so I met him for the first time in Toronto. He was announced that he was becoming CTO. He was announced internally. Before that, like maybe I'm not sure. It was before that, maybe a month before, something of this sort of time frame. But there was also a transition period where he was leaving his previous work and joining us. And to be honest, I'm not sure whether he's with us full time yet or not.
Oh, right.
Okay. So me being remote from the office is also leads to a certain disconnect between me and the what's going on there.
I guess it does. So how often do you see all the guys there? Do you have like a virtual meeting once a week or once a day, or do you fly over there a lot?
Well, there's a daily stand-up for the development team, which I join most of the time. Usually I head down there once a month for a week, but then when I'm there, it doesn't mean other people are, right? So Craig usually pops in once a week, but as you know, he's out and about at the moment, so I might not see him next week. Jimmy, for example, is always traveling around the world, and it's been a while since I've seen him. Well, no, I saw him at Toronto, of course, but before that.
Well, Jimmy's not actually with nChain anymore, is he, officially?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. So we'll see him even less, I guess. Yeah.
I guess so. Although he does tend to pop up.
Yeah.
Has there been any change in direction since David took over, or is it pretty much just same thing?
No, it's continuing. So yeah.
Who would you say is I mean, I think I know what the answer is going to be, but who would you say is the main ideas guy at Endchain? Do you sit down and conference, that sort of thing, or does it get directed to you?
So before we used to talk more, but when when Bitcoin Cash split off from BTC, or when BTC split from Bitcoin, well, depending on your point of view, we used to talk more about where how we wanted to bring the chain back to the original protocol, right? With unbounded capacity and also restoring the opcodes. But after a while, we know now what we need to do. So and that's kind of what I am following up on. Is this road map that we set out, and that's what I'm pursuing. Steve Shadows, he's much more in contact with the with like Craig and the other thought leaders than I am.
It's I think we've been pretty clear on the technical roadmap for Endchain, but is there any change in the approach to how you're going to sell it, or how you're going to communicate with the big enterprises that you mentioned before?
Well, that's what the professional services group is doing, right? That I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
They're responding to requests, and they're meeting with companies. They don't keep me in the loop. I know they're pursuing a lot of interested companies, but I couldn't tell you who they were.
But I mean,
the company is growing, and Endchain is growing constantly. We split off into a second set of offices now, and when that happens, particularly the people in they get more focused on what they're doing, and you don't have all of the cross company communication that you just can't anymore, right? The different areas of the company focus more on what they're doing, and don't always hear everything that's going on around the company.
Yeah, I've seen that happen in a lot of organizations that start off small and grow big. I mean, they start off with everyone knowing everything, and then after a while, no one really knows what everyone else is doing, or the overall roadmap where the company's going.
Well, I think that's more like the CEO who knows that, right? Who knows? Just the people. And maybe Steve too. I think also as CTO, he also has a lot more to do with the leaders of the other departments. But I'm like kind of just below Steve and below him. So I see them when I go to London. I chat with them, but we don't always get into details about everything that's going on. No.
Yeah, sorry to browbeat you with the whole policy direction thing. I think it's just a topic that a lot of people are thinking about at the moment, because they're pretty pleased with where the protocol's going, and they like the idea. They know that there's going to be an upgrade in July, and we're going to have 2 GB blocks, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think they're more interested in the bigger picture, where it's all going, how it's going to grow, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know. I understand that, and for the last year or so, I've been focusing almost exclusively on capacity and the Genesis upgrade that's coming. And I see that I'm missing out on other things that are happening, because I just can't keep track of everything that's going on in the community. I see some really great things coming out, right? We had Jack Davis's Metanet talk was fascinating.
Very enjoyable.
We've had, I'm trying to get into Twitch. I'll give a quick plug there.
I'll give Twitch a quick plug too, because I'm still waiting for my invite.
And the tokenized group, what Money Button's doing is amazing. But there are also an Unwriter, his stuff. but I just I think there's so much going on now that if I were to take the time to follow everything in a level of detail that I'd like to, I wouldn't have time to do anything. Right.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I need to cut at various points and say, you know, that's interesting. Okay, but I need to get back to work.
I know that feeling. So there was another announcement. You know, I think it was Jack Liu, was it, who he announced the Barley boot camp for BitcoinSV developers. They're all going to get together on a nice tropical island and talk about this. If they were seeking guidance on where they should look, you know, what kind of ideas they should expand on, do you have any suggestions for them?
Ooh, interesting. I'd like to see identity, but I do know that there are several people working on that already.
That's good to know.
So Paymail was a step in that direction, right? And Paymail is kind of like a federated identity model. And Paymail is fantastic, right? From the user experience point of view, it's amazing to be able to send to what looks like an email address.
Yeah.
That it's really a fantastic advance, and I was so happy to see that come out. I'd like to see, but yeah, I think that identity is a big one. I'd like to see more of that. It might link into some of the other things. I mean, I see it as a foundational block that would link into many of the other stuff that's happening.
Oh, absolutely.
So I know that Tokenized, for example, I think they have an identity bit in too. That was one of the bits that's on my list to look at.
I've been hearing people talk about identity systems on blockchain for years, but even though I've seen, you know, a few implementations of it, there's not one that's really widely accepted. Do you think acceptance is a big roadblock to that?
Do I think what is a roadblock to that?
Well, acceptance, you know, like by banks and governments and, you know, organizations that would manage your real ID. You know, they're a little bit hesitant to jump into blockchain and start seeing that as a valid system so far.
Yes. I mean, I can understand that, but I think there's a constant build up of interest in it, right? And like with many of these things, I think we need to find one person to start, and then the others will start. You know, other people will look at that and see how it's going, and slowly you'll get more and more people using it. I think it's really powerful, the distributed identity, but if it's, you know, it's difficult to. We need to be very careful, I should say, about doing it. But there's even a reference to it in Facebook's LibreCoin thing somewhere. There is the W3C is also working on a standard for that, and their standard is kind of, the way I see it, is more like an API that is higher level and could apply to any blockchain. Microsoft has implemented some sort of proof of concept of that on BTC using some sort of sidechain technology, I think. And I'd love to do that on BSV, because you wouldn't need any of this sidechain junk, right? You just put it straight on the chain where it belongs. Yeah. I you know, from what I've seen of this standard that the W3C is coming up with, I think it'll be easy to implement that as an API on BSV, and then but then it is an API, right? So the actual details could be BSV specific, and provide extra features that would be really useful, using the IP, for example, from Endchain.
It's interesting that you mentioned the Facebook coin, I think Libra, before, because that was actually one of the questions from loads of use cases on Twitter. He said, what do you think about the Facebook coin, or any potential coins from other big tech giants like Google or Amazon. People ask me this a lot too. I honestly don't know what to say.
I kind of see them a bit more as another, maybe as another PayPal, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what PayPal was supposed to be originally. That was supposed to, become its own currency after a while.
Was it really? Okay, I don't know the history that well, but yeah.
Yeah, I read somewhere that was the original part of the original vision for it, or at least to, in theory, to become its own currency. To the point where you could just spend whatever you had in your wallet, and it didn't really matter what came out the other end. But yeah, there was a disappointment there that they never did sort of develop their own standard.
I mean, we're seeing progression in a lot, like in a lot of the payment areas, and so I don't know what it's like over where you are, but where I am, I have a tap card thing, and just tapping on the machine to pay. That was really novel when Bitcoin first came out, that sort of capability to instantly pay something. But now the banks have caught up, and they're offering this service. And yes, we can do it better, but doing it slightly better is probably not enough to convince my local supermarket to change over, right?
Probably not. No.
There's a whole set of other things needed in there to get that happening.
Yeah, well, in a way, these better systems, like tap and pay that work on the old fiat system, they might even hinder Bitcoin adoption a bit because people think they're better, so they're not really looking for any new solutions. They say, oh well, I have my tap card now that works fine.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, we lost a lot of time there in being able to, if we'd provided that 5 years ago or something, in 2013 or something, it would have been amazing, right? But now everybody's got it. So also one of the things there is the stability of the coin. People don't want to spend Bitcoin when they think it's going to be worth twice as much 2 years down the road.
Yeah, that's always been
this was touted previously as a benefit because, but they were talking about I think they were talking about a philosophical viewpoint, right? Which is that saving is good, and you should only spend what you really need, and then you get this sort of behavior that you would only spend your Bitcoin on porridge to keep you alive. And everything else you'd save, right? That's taking it to extremes, of course.
Well, everyone I've spoken to has sort of mentioned that problem.
Yeah. So having a stable coin on top of BSV is an approach around that, right?
Yeah. Do you think it really is just a way to introduce SDR to the masses? Special drawing rights.
Special what? Sorry.
Special drawing rights. They is it the World Bank? I can never remember who actually uses SDRs. It's the global currency that's used between central banks, but it's based on a basket of national fiat currencies.
Oh, okay. I hadn't heard that term before.
Oh right, yeah. It's a bit obscure if you've, unless you're a central banker.
I don't know. Yeah, that was an interesting part, the Facebook one, wasn't it? Of using a basket of currencies.
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting that. I thought they were just going to put out some token and they were going to call it a cryptocurrency, but it wouldn't really be based on anything on Facebook.
Yeah, well, I thought they'd just use US dollar, to be honest. But I mean, I know there are lots of countries where the people wouldn't mind using US dollars. Yeah, interesting. I'm not sure about that. That gets into like economics and stuff, which is not my forte.
No worries. How about we go back to technical stuff then?
Yeah.
There's a question here from BitDaddy. He says, will 5G networks have any effect on BSV when they roll out? And do you ever see us able to connect to the Metanet direct from a laptop, pay for use without requiring a network provider like Virgin or similar? 5G, yeah. When's that actually going to happen? I think they've already started to roll it out in Australia.
Yeah, I think I saw this question, so I quickly checked on it, and I think they are starting to roll it out. But I also read that, from what I just read this morning, right, that it, in some cases, is not much faster than 4G.
Really?
But I could be completely wrong.
Uh-huh.
Look, faster networks are always better. But the way we do see BSV growing is in primarily in data centers, and we see more a client layer with wallets such as Handcash or Electrum SV, who don't like validate the blocks, who validate the block headers but don't download all the blocks and validate every single transaction in them, who use SPV to verify that they're on the correct chain and things like that. And a faster network will certainly make that more possible and faster. It will help spread the adoption.
Yeah, faster network by itself is not going to create a self-supporting network, I think. You're still going to be going through providers, and, of course, everyone's going to want to be that provider.
Yes. I mean, yeah, so someone needs to provide a 5G service. Now, what might be interested is whether you could start paying for that with like micropayments, with a sort of payment channel sort of approach. And that would be primarily interesting for me, I think, when doing travel. So when I travel around Europe right now, I don't know if everyone in your audience is in Europe, but when I travel around Europe right now, I have constant data connection on my cell phone. My contract with my phone provider covers me throughout Europe. I think it's maybe some new EU legislation or something, I don't know. Where I do have issues is when I travel further abroad, like to Canada, where I was recently, where suddenly I lose data connection, and it's quite disconcerting when you don't prepare yourself for it, right? So in that sort of scenario of being able to connect to some sort of local provider of 5G or whatever, and do like micropayments of either on a volume wise or on a time wise would be great. But I don't know how big the market for that would be, to be honest. I mean, international travelers, yeah, I suppose there are a lot of them, but how many of them would use that? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's not something you really think about until you have to do it a lot, and then it becomes a big issue. But for most people, they're only interested in their own local infrastructure and nothing more.
Yes, I mean, I know one of my colleagues has a little gadget thing that gives him Wi-Fi through the cellular network throughout the whole world, right? And he travels enough that it's worth it for him to have that.
Yeah.
So he has it.
Yeah, they're not bad when they work and when you don't run out of data all the time like I do.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll see about that. Okay, just moving on to the next one. He did want to talk about the R puzzles too.
Okay.
He said
R puzzles.
R puzzle coin things that sound like pure magic science fiction and have left me puzzled. How do they work? What are actual real world use cases? Now, I sympathize with that because yes, R puzzles definitely seem like pure magic science fiction to me too. Didn't someone use the Schrodinger's cat model?
For R puzzles?
For a transaction that sort of exists and doesn't exist at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure how that would link in. I'd have to look at that one.
I'll just throw up Brendan Lee's tweet about that.
What we're seeing with R puzzles, I want to take it a bit higher level. is what we're seeing with our puzzles is some of the IP. Now, I'm not entirely sure this our puzzle is covered by a patent, right? But some of the results of the research team starting to come out of Endchain. Okay, so our puzzles is a building block of how you could build solutions, smart contracts on Bitcoin. It's a novel use. It's different. So and this is one of the bits I like about it is that normally when you the process of having public and private keys and signing a message with the private key that's verifiable by the public key. This is a standard building block in IT, and it's been around for a while, and everyone, any serious IT person will know that it works. They might not understand exactly how it works, but they'll know that it works. So part of that process is that, and this is the way it's been defined for a long time, is that you generate this, it's called an ephemeral key, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is it's a separate public and private key pair, a private key which you then derive the public key from. And it's crucial in the protocol. It's crucial in the use of this cryptographic technique that you throw that away at the end of it, that you discard it, that you never use it again.
Right.
That particular private key. You sign a message with it, and then you throw away the private key, and anybody is able to verify that it's been done, that the signature matches the message.
So, as Brendan Lee was saying, you could use it for build on the capability to spend money using any address controlled by the user. So this means an address without any satoshis in it. So you can spend from an address that doesn't actually have any funds in it yet, any transaction inputs or outputs.
But you couldn't spend it yet until it's there, right? But you could.
No, you can sort of set up the transaction. Is that right?
Yes, you could set it up beforehand using that. Yeah, but how novel would that be, though? Because I mean, yeah.
So it could be a transaction that executes at some future point. If a certain set of conditions happen.
Yep.
I'm way too small brain to think of the wider use cases for this.
Yeah. So but I wanted to. I think it's a building block for future things, right? Mm-hmm. And the point that I wanted to talk about a second ago was that this is an ephemeral key that up until now, everybody said you generate that and then you throw it away, because there is a vulnerability in if you keep it. And that's the way the conventional cryptography works. And what this our puzzle has done is it's gone back and said, oh, wait a sec, yes, I know everybody says that this is the way to do it. But what about if we kept it? Mm-hmm. What about if we started using this thing that you're supposed to throw away? What about if we started using it for more interesting use cases? And it turns out that there are a whole bunch of things you can do with it instead of throwing it away. Right? So,
such as?
Well, one of the examples used was that you can constrain. Someone has to solve a problem, which generates a solution, and that solution is then part of the signature. So then you sign, but you can check in script that the signature uses that particular R value that you're looking for. It protects. Can be used to protect a hash puzzle.
Yeah. What sort of event might trigger to create that solution? Some world event or news event or life event or economic event?
Well, the one I've read about is where you're solving a problem, right, and
Mm-hmm.
you're providing the solution, and you can prove that you're providing the solution without actually providing the solution. Isn't this the zero knowledge proof area? Doesn't this sort of get into them?
Yeah.
Again, this is stuff I really used to be interested in, but I just don't have time to follow up on them anymore.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, they see these posts and they read the technical details and they think that sounds absolutely fascinating, but what are people going to use this for, or do I have to invent some way to
Yeah,
use it after I've learned all the technical side? I think
yeah.
Bitcoin
I
itself is a
think
bit like that.
it's a building block
Yeah.
that will be built on later.
Uh
Yeah,
huh.
and there are some immediate use cases for it. There are
Mm-hmm.
some immediate examples, but there are also some some things that will build on it later that you can do. And one of the interesting cases here is that you're starting to see the script language being used, right? So I don't know if you watched the presentation of the R puzzle from that Bitcoin London meetup um, a couple of weeks ago.
I
Uh,
watched it. I can't say I fully understood it.
Okay, well, what you're starting to see there is how to do it in script,
Uh huh.
right? So that's the smart contract side of it, that you can actually start doing a lot of these things in script. And script has been so underutilized over the last 10 years. I'm really looking forward
Sure
to
has.
what people start to do
Uh huh.
using it. And here you're starting to see examples coming up of novel things we can do using script.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
Um,
Craig Wright is always talking about programmable money.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Uh huh.
yeah. Yeah, there's some really fascinating things you can do.
I guess back in 1998 or something, when everyone was using the web, if someone said to them, we can build social networks on this, people would say, "What's a social network?"
Yeah,
it really took someone to come up with that first example of it, and then people extrapolated from there, as to what social networks could do and what problems they would encounter, that kind of
yeah,
thing.
true. Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
a lot of people see our puzzles. It's quite fascinating, but it's also kind of esoteric to the average person out there, who's not a computer scientist or a developer. Because
yes, definitely. Yeah, yeah. I
they're
mean, um, I think it's a building block that more things can be worked onto, right? So
uh,
that piece of code that he presented, of script code that he presented, one could easily imagine that as being a sort of like a function. Once you start using a higher level language to generate script, writing in a higher level language to generate script, one could imagine that would be a function that you would call to like extract the R value and verify it or something like that. And but that would be one part of a bigger contract. Yeah.
yeah. Well, hopefully we can trigger some sort of conversation on this and get people coming up with some fresh ideas. Because yeah, I'd certainly love to see them.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just ask one or two more questions and then I'll let you go because I don't want to take up too much of your time. Uh, One other question we had was how long till unlimited block sizes on BSV? I know we've got 2 GB coming up, and that the ultimate goal is to have unlimited or not defined.
Yes, that's right. So that is actually planned for Genesis, which is February
Hmm.
next year,
Right,
is to remove the block size completely.
lock that date in
What
your
we're
mind.
working on, so this is an area I'm much more comfortable with because I'm working on it every day.
Good.
Um, so what we're working on right now, I was thinking about this the other week, and I came up with the the sort of way of describing it is that Bitcoin up until now, the way I see the internal processing of the Bitcoin node is a batch model.
Hmm.
All right. So it collects all of the transactions over time. They stream into the node, right? And then
Yeah.
they get added to this mempool.
Hmm.
And then every now and again, this batch process kicks off where it grabs the whole contents of the mempool and tries to form a block. right? Assembles it into a block, and then the miners get started working on that. It's actually called a block template because it doesn't at the proof of work. The miners get started to generate the proof of work, and then when they find it, you send it out. It's a batch process. So what we are working on in BitcoinSV is changing that from a batch process to a stream process.
Wow.
The problem with the batch process is that every time, like a miner requests it to generate a block, it starts from scratch and it generates a completely new block. And why, right? The first time the miner request it, and these requests will come in every like 5 seconds or so, right, from the miner. The first time the miner requests a block, the process should fit as many transactions in it as it can and give it back to the miner. Miner start hashing, and then the second time it requests a block, it should just build on what it already has, right? It doesn't need to start from scratch again. It's already created a large block template. It just needs to add the new stuff onto it. So this is a sort of more streaming. It's not entirely, because it's still every now and again, but it's a more streaming approach to assembling the block.
Okay? So it's more of the block assembly itself rather than the block confirmation that's changing here.
Sorry, what?
It's more the way the block is assembled in the first place than the confirmation of the block. Is that right?
Yes. So when we head towards 2 gigabyte blocks, also we need to start changing the terminology a bit. Yeah. When we start heading towards 10,000 transactions per second, okay, regardless of how big the transactions are, regardless of block size, then we need to start moving to these techniques, moving to a streaming model and not a batch model, because the number of transactions just becomes so large, right? 10,000 transactions per second is what, 600,000 per minute? Did I get that right? Yeah. Yes, I did. Okay.
I'll say you did. I can't do math and stream at the same time.
6 million every block, right? They start to get really large. Where was I going with this again? Oh yes. So what we need to do is we need to take this this limitation of how many transactions there are out of it. But if you have a batch model, you're limited by the limit of what you can do in a particular time is a limit. I've used limit too often in a sentence. What you can do in a particular amount of time is limited by how many. The limit you get is how many items there are to add to that block, right? So how many items you have to process. If you move to a streaming model, you're processing items continually, and you remove that limit of items, of the number of items. And what you're doing is you're continually building the block, regardless of how many items there are. Of course, there's still a limit to how fast you can build that block. But since you're continually building it over time, you don't have this limit of on the number of items you have to deal with at one time, because you're constantly adding them all the time.
So would that model eliminate the mempool?
Sorry, what?
Would eliminate the mempool?
No. It will change it a lot. We need to change it a lot to streamline it, because it's obese is the way I term it right now. It needs to be slimmed down a lot to enable it to go faster. I don't like the mempool. I think it's the wrong terminology. It should be a transaction store, not a mempool. But that's getting quite far away. That's more a sort of Terra topic than a BitcoinSV topic.
Right.
The mempool implies storage and memory to start off with, which is limited, right? Capacity of memory is always limited. The mempool right now, the way it is in Bitcoin, inherited from Bitcoin Core, just the way it is designed, is it's almost a prototype block. It's double spends, right? So you do actually want to keep track of double spends a bit. You only want to insert, of course, when you're constructing the block, you only want to put the first transaction in that you've seen. But you do, at least to a certain extent, want to keep track of the other double spends, at least until the original is confirmed, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that if you throw the double spend away straight away, then other peers can send it to you again. It's just a waste of time. The other, although there is a little thing to stop that, but still. Also, although you saw one first, your node, and you're constructing a block, you saw one first, and validated that one. The node that finds block might have seen the other one first.
Yeah.
So you should keep it around just in case the other guy finds the block and you need to validate it, right?
Yeah.
Throwing it away is immediately is not a good thing. But the problem, you can't put it in the mempool as the mempool is right now, because the mempool is not allowed to have any transactions that double spend in it. The double spend check is a good spot. The mempool needs a redesign.
Yeah, well, all right. Well, that's something to look forward to. Not so much of a blockchain as a stream chain, maybe. Someone needs to go out and register that trademark as soon as possible. You just can't call it a block stream, okay? Because that one's already taken.
No, exactly.
It's not particularly good.
I mean, there still are blocks, right? So it is a sort of batching process, but you want to stream into those blocks. Yeah. It gets a bit tricky to explain. It's the way I have it in my head. It gets a bit tricky.
Indeed. So is that more of a long-term thing, or is it going to start rolling out, after Genesis?
Some of these you will see before Genesis.
Great.
Another piece of the puzzle there for increasing the transactions per second is parallel validation of transactions. Yeah. Our two main focuses right now are parallel transaction validation and the way the blocks are assembled, moving to a more streaming model instead of this batch process I was talking about. Those are two main directions for when we talk about capacity, and those are being worked on right now. The parallel validation code is in actually code review right now. It's not ready for an immediate release, but we are verifying it and validating it, checking that it works properly, and we hope to get that out within the next couple of months, so 3 maybe.
Very good.
And block assembly is also progressing, and maybe we'll get at least the first stages of that out also in a couple of months.
Oh, that's great to hear. All right then. Well, I might let you go after this, just so I could keep my reputation at Endchain by sticking to the 1 hour limit, roughly. I want to thank you so much for all the information you gave us. I think people who understand it are going to be able to find some nuggets of info in there and maybe find some new directions to take. I hope. Because there was a lot of stuff in there that I haven't heard of before.
Okay. Well, I hope it's been useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do want to get back to building applications on top of the chain. That is certainly a direction I want to go in. But I don't see that happening until next year at the earliest.
That's going to come up quicker than you think.
Yes, that is not that far away. So I am but as a consequence of that, I am a bit out of touch on the latest developments that are happening, and I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no, no
Some of
worries. I
my
mean,
answers might have been not very clear.
no,
So
no, we need to hear
don't
the
say
side of
anything
it too. Yeah, I think this delving deeper into where it's going technically is just as useful as hearing the overview too. I mean, if people want an overview, they can look at Twitter. If
yeah, true, true.
if they're still there, that is. So, are
Yeah.
you going to be speaking at any events or conferences soon?
I don't have anything immediate. No, anything public immediate. No.
Well, what's the next big event on the SV calendar? I know we've got CoinGeek coming up in October, which is also going to come up quicker than you would think. But is there anything before then?
Yes. No, that's the next one that I'm involved in. Yeah.
Okay, then.
So.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Daniel. And tell people where they can find you if they want to follow your latest updates. Do you write on Medium or do you just post on Twitter?
I post on Twitter occasionally. I have a love-hate relationship with Twitter.
Don't we all?
I go on it sometimes and I get annoyed with it. I'm interested in Twitch to see what will happen there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting.
If I write something, I do have a couple of articles queued up to write. I will. They will usually come out on the BitcoinSV .io site. But I'll tweet them too. Usually, yes, of course I'll tweet them too. And we'll see how Twitch goes. See how that develops.
Yeah, have you actually used Twitch yet?
No.
Right, I haven't had the chance to either. So that's a big hint to all the Twitch devs out there. Help us jump the queue. This is your plug.
Yes, the lucky few who've got on it, right? And
yeah.
I've been checking my spam folder and email, and I'm not receiving anything. So I don't know.
I need to do that. Yeah, maybe there's something in there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Daniel Connolly, lead developer of BitcoinSV at Endchain. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's good to talk to you.
All right. See you later.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. And that's a very odd-looking screen there. Get rid of that. All right. Well, that was Daniel Connolly from Endchain. Hope you all enjoyed it. Just before we go, I want to run through a few news items from the BitcoinSV world that have been happening in the past week or so. If you're still on Twitter, you've probably seen them already, but it's good to have them all in the one place. Just a reminder to anyone who's in London, the Metanet event, Metanet ICU event, is still going on there tonight. Starts at 6 p.m. It's limited to 100 places, but if you check metanet.icu, you might find that there's a place or two left. Take a look at that, and if you're in town, definitely go, because it's going to be a big event for how the Metanet can help content creators, specifically musicians, but really anyone. So, yep, go along to that. There'll be plenty of entertainment and some fantastic music as well. Now, this week, we had the Metanet Planaria was released by the legendary and very anonymous Unwriter. Where did I put that? Aha. There we go. So Unwriter is called the Metanet, the world's first four-dimensional supercomputer, natively powered by Bitcoin and lives on Bitcoin. The Metanet, of course, probably thanks to the name of this channel, is going to be one of the most exciting projects on BitcoinSV, and it's certainly one that everyone's very interested in. So yeah, it's a protocol that allows virtual data structures on Bitcoin, absolute data ownership, fungible computation, and infinite computation. If the term infinite computation doesn't excite you, I don't know what will. So yeah, definitely follow Unwriter. That's @_Unwriter on Twitter, and check out his posts on Medium as well, where he digs deeper into all of this. I'm going to be doing a video soon where we look a bit closer at the Metanet and what it is. So I'll leave it there for now. And also, Unwriter was hard at work launching Bitbus. And that's a Bitcoinless Bitcoin computer network. It doesn't quite have the same ring as infinite computing, but it's not bad. A Bitcoinless Bitcoin computer network. This is mainly for businesses and developers who want to query the blockchain and get an accurate result, but they don't want to run a full node. Previously, running a full node was the only way you could really guarantee that the information you're getting was correct. Thanks to Bitbus, that's a thing of the past, because now you'll be able to make things faster and more efficient, and that's exclusively on BitcoinSV. Available on the usual Bitcoin Association's open BSV license. See how great it is to work on BitcoinSV. Everyone else is going to have to deal with these patents and IP issues at some stage. We have the open BSV license. All right, what's next? Oh yeah, who could forget this? The Expo Bitcoin International in Colombia was the first event since CoinGeek. It was actually a 5-day event in Bogota, Colombia. It was dedicated to BSV education and discussion with a fairly large focus on governments and regulators. Now, people in Bitcoin and Dash and Bitcoin Cash, they've been talking about Latin America for a long time. They see it as the place where cryptocurrency is really going to take off. So far, though, we've only seen like little hints of that actually happening. And BitcoinSV, because of its government and regulator-friendly model, I think they might be able to make some inroads into the Latin American market. And speaking of inroads, Dr. Craig S. Wright did exactly that. He did a presentation to the Bogota City Council on the importance of working with, you guessed it, governments and regulators, and also how BitcoinSV can help build a new economy in Latin America. You've probably all seen the pictures. The big highlight of that presentation, at least for us, was the fact that Bogota City Council introduced Craig Wright as Satoshi Nakamoto and gave him a certificate in a nice case to that effect as well. It is. I know it was quite good to see that happening at an official level anyway. And there's a picture of Craig actually presenting at the council. So yeah, Colombia. Anyone been there yet? Except for a BitcoinSV conference. Do we have any viewers or subscribers in Colombia? Because I'd really like to find out more about that. It's a long way from where I am, but it's also a place I'd like to visit someday. We had Jimmy Nguyen speaking in New York City. He was speaking at a panel at the Crypto Evolved conference. He's talking about distributed ledger technology for financial products, and he. If you can check it out, there's a very short interview that he did with NASDAQ Trade Talks with the extremely fast-talking Jill Malandrino in a short video. And yep, you can go to the bitcoinassociation.net. That's .net, not .org, if you want to see more videos, details, and news updates. This one just popped up today. It's Crypto Factor on Twitter. He posted, "I'm hoping to wrap myself in BSV logos and walk through the center of London. I approached Kelvin, but I was ushered out of the building. I can't imagine why. Please donate to Crypto Factor. I'm willing to walk around the House of Parliament twice if I wear my good shoes." There you go. That is an interesting BSV project. Now, he didn't specify whether he was actually going to wear clothes or he was just going to drape himself in Bitcoin logos. Anyway, I'm sure if you send him a donation, he's already been dared to do it by Wall Street 5 and YoBits and a couple of others who've started to contribute. So, personally, I want to hear some more details about what he has in mind. I think the more daring he gets, the more money he's likely to get. So, bear that in mind. And just a quick run through of some of the services that have launched on SV this week or updated this week. Agora.icu came out with the alpha release of their Android app. It's available on Google Play. Even though it's in alpha release, it still works pretty well. It does all the things that the Agora.icu site does. It's just a central location for a bunch of different BitcoinSV services, news sources, wallets, everything else you could imagine. So, yep, if you've got an Android phone and you don't mind a bit of alpha software, well, I gotta say it works pretty well. It's a little bit beyond that stage. Check out Agara's mobile app. What else we got? Aha. BSV devs. So Eli Afram noted on Twitter before. I think I have a screenshot of that. I do. There you go. BSV maps. He says that this... I know you're thinking, yeah, great. Another Bitcoin business locator, but this one's a little bit different to the ones that have come before. This allows you to add your own business, and users can then upvote or downvote your business depending on how good or how worthy or how accurate they think the information is. So if a business is not around anymore, it might get downvoted. If they think it's a great business, you guessed it, upvotes. It kind of works on a Reddit model that way, and each vote on the system is a BSV transaction, but you don't actually have to pay other than the cost of the mining fee, which is less than 1 cent. Eli Afram said it fixes the problem of Bitcoin mapping services with siloed data points. And yeah, we've all seen the frustration of other sites where you go there and it lists a whole bunch of businesses and none of them actually exist anymore or accept Bitcoin. So go to this one. As you can see, there's only a few points on the map so far, but that's already grown since I looked at it last time. It only just launched, so go there and add more to it. What else we got? What's on chain? What's on chain have launched the Metanet Explorer. They've improved the infrastructure and say they're ready for the next level. BitcoinSV. It's got Metanet decoding plugins, user subscriptions on What's on Chain, and a new feature for developers to charge for use. So go and check out whatsonchain.com for that. We got a new release of the Electrum SV wallet coming up soon. Version 1.1, 1.2.2 is coming out for all you Electrum fans. They've promised they're not going to make any groundbreaking changes, but they have removed some of the old Bitcoin Cash block explorers that aren't particularly functional anymore, at least on SV. And kind of satisfyingly, they've removed Kraken from their list of exchanges that you can use for exchange rates. Oh yeah, and they've added a bunch of new warnings about coin splitting and moving your funds into BitcoinSV. I know that coin splitting from the previous forks is far more of a hassle than people would think. And it's kind of a nerve-wracking process too. When you hit that button, you just never know what's going to come out the other end. So we're just making sure that people know what they're getting themselves into there before they do that. Over at the Bitcoin Association, they mentioned drawbridge lending. Now, this is a little bit different. It's not your usual BitcoinSV service. It's just an example of how BitcoinSV is finding more acceptance in the mainstream financial world, and it does show that BitcoinSV has some appeal out there as well. What it is it allows you to secure loans against your BSV holdings. And importantly, you don't actually have to hand over your BSV to get that loan, and which a lot of people I'm sure will find a big selling point. It's you can offer BitcoinSV based non-recourse loans and no margin calls, and use the cash proceeds from that loan as you wish. Go over to drawbridgelending.com. I don't know how many people watching this are going to be the target market for that, but you never know. It's an interesting case anyway. And last on the list of news, we have AudioB. So AudioB is a great, but at this stage it's a pretty bare bones music sales service where it works with MoneyButton. You can go on there, and one feature they added recently that made a big difference to me was the ability to sample the music before you buy it. Before, you couldn't actually listen to any of the tracks before you bought them, so you didn't really know whether you'd like it or not. Now, it does have the feature to play short samples, which is going to be a huge plus. I think their sales are going to increase massively after that. Hopefully soon they add more features like artist search, genre search, that kind of thing. And we got, there we go. There's an example. Sam Cox, who is a fan of the show, and he also provided the absolute rocking track that we use as our start and end titles here on the MetanetTV live stream, called appropriately Metanet. But yeah, if you check out his Audio B page, he does have a few other samples available. So does Shem Booth, another fan of the show. Both of those guys will be appearing at the Metanet.icu event in London tonight. Giving that another plug there. Head over to Audio B. Most of the content there is available for between 20 cents and $1. And I've downloaded a bunch of tracks from there, and I gotta say the quality's pretty darn good. So yeah, much cheaper than iTunes. And your money's going to a much better place than if you spend it at iTunes or anywhere else as well. And you do get to keep the track. You can stream it, or you can actually download the track and keep it wherever you like. I'm kind of old, so I like that. I like that model where I get to download stuff. It feels a lot more satisfying. All right, well, that's all for the MetanetTV live stream this month. I'm going to be back on the BitcoinSV Train channel semi-regularly, just posting interviews and updates, and hopefully a couple of live streams as well with people in the industry, just talking in a bit more depth about the services they're going to be building and the plans they're coming up with. And the MetanetTV live stream will be coming up next month, hopefully with another interview from the depths of Endchain. I should say the echelons of Endchain. That sounds a lot better. And thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel and follow MetanetICU on Twitter and BitcoinSV Train on Twitter for all the updates. See you again next time.